Good afternoon. My name is Dela Morris, the chapter's president, and on behalf of the valiant and vibrant women of the Vallejo Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, I would like to welcome you to our first virtual days in Vallejo. The Vallejo Alumnae chapter represents over 300,000 women all over the globe that acknowledge and recognize that there is power in our voice. Today, we are using our power and voice to shed light on redistricting. What is it? Why does it matter? Why should you pay attention to it and take action? Do you know the district lines in your county? Do you know about the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act? Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is synonymous with education and social action. Our understanding of topics like redistricting helps us keep power in our communities. We are here to make sure you have the answers to these questions. To the presenters and coordinators of today's events, thank you for this monumental opportunity to share this important information. To our supporters, thank you for tuning in, and remember to stay engaged.
Hi, my name is Kay Patrice Williams, and I am your moderator for today's event. This event, Red Alert. Let's get started. Oh my goodness, I am going to bring on to the stage one of my favorite people, and I have a feeling she is one of your favorite people as well. Rhonda R. Smith. And just to give you a little bit more information about Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda, there you are.
Hi.
I'm gonna boast about you a little bit. Rhonda R. Smith, MPA, MAED, MAOL, also Solano Volunteer Program Coordinator, and a member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in this chapter. And let me make sure I say alumni right. Vallejo Alumnae chapter. Yes?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome. You are our first presenter today. And I tell you, it's perfect that you're first because many of us were so engaged in the census that took place and finalized last year. And we had a lot of things going. We had caravans, we had events, we were walking, we were talking to our neighbors. You especially, ma'am, you were talking to your neighbors because you were texting me and saying, what are we going to do about this neighbor? And I'm like, oh my goodness. We're having
Don't tell them I was spying.
Okay, I won't tell them. But everybody was super, super engaged. Let's have a little dialogue about it. You remember that time very well, right?
I do. Last evening when we were speaking, you asked me what motivated me, what got me kind of excited about the census. And I think what motivated me, it was for my own mental health. Like many others, I was experiencing, I'll name it. I think it was depression. We were faced with social injustice. We were faced with political injustice. We had COVID. We had all kinds of things going on. And I just felt very high anxiety. Every day I woke up and tried to function and go to work, and then would think about what else can I do? How else can we make this better? And then having conversations with other thought leaders in the community, such as yourself, and you were already working with the census. And so it was because of my mental health and because of our conversation, just trying to see what we could do. having over 20 years experience in nonprofit organizations, I knew the importance of the census as it pertained to the financial impact the census had on a lot of our funding: streets, medical care, education, transportation, roads, anything that we dealt with. The census oftentimes what the dollars that we received are based from. So I knew that much. And it was an opportunity to really get out and get folks that maybe didn't know. I think I'm an educator by heart. And so getting out and talking to the community, it took me out of my comfort zone as well. Because for those that know me, I was on the corner with signs, like asking people to honk and, engaging people that probably I otherwise wouldn't regularly engage with, just walking up to strangers again. But it was that important. It was life or death. Having folks respond to the census became a life or death situation. That many of the organizations that I'm already affiliated with wanted to make sure that we had folks respond.
Right. And for the audience listening, and by the way, our Facebook friends will not be able to see this recording until for another few hours. There was a technical glitch connecting to you guys. So you're going to see this later, but still, I want you, when you see this recording, I want you to answer the question: did you respond to the census? If you're here in our studio audience, I want you to answer the question: did you respond to the census? Valerie Carpenter, I see you, yes. Dr. Lakeitha Lake Pasqua, yes, I see that's a yes for you. Let's see, I see a yes for, it's going so fast. I'm having a hard time catching up.
Well, that's good. It's good to hear that people were engaged and involved.
Yes, Brenda Mitchell, I see you. Danita Carter, I see you. We're getting all of these yeses. But Dr. Patrick, I see you, yes. Kathleen Kitsy, I see you, yes. But I see Vanessa. Vanessa says, most definitely. But
we were all there.
We knew the answer to that question. And the reason why we know is because we meaning Solano County, together, we all ended the census count at 99.7% interest rate. Did I say interest rate?
Yes, you did. I don't want that interest rate, but I want that completion rate. So yes, 99.7% census completed for our county.
We did it. And in fact, and they haven't given us our final numbers, but I believe if we didn't come in the top 3 in the county, in the states, I believe we're going to be ranked pretty high. That month before census ended, we were at top 3. So we did that, and we did that together. And it's so funny because we also have a presenter coming later in the show, and she did a lot of work with the census too. But this is so exciting. Look, here we go. Everybody is so excited. Yes, Reverend Dyson, yes. Rosemary Lusant, did I say that right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Mary Henderson says yes. So very exciting. So that's why we're all excited. We were all engaged, involved in some way, right, Rhonda?
Absolutely. And I think where we are now is, for me, I was so engaged, so excited, so plugged into the census. I didn't think about the what's next. And I don't know how others that have joined us felt. Heard of redistricting, I guess kind of put it to the side, maybe didn't even realize how connected they are. We can't do census without thinking about redistricting. So you'll hear that often from all of the presenters. So you will hear some repeat information, and that's because we want you to think about it and remember it and tell your family and friends. But we can't do the census without redistricting. They go hand in hand, and that's where we are today.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, I know you have a presentation for us.
I do, and if I'm going to share my screen. Hope I do this right. Are we good? All right, do you see my screen, Kay Patrice? Okay. I'm assuming somebody would tell me if they don't see my screen.
It's perfect.
Perfect, thank you. So this afternoon, I am briefly going to go over what is redistricting. Again, as I mentioned, we can't talk about the census and on all that great work without continuing that work and remaining as engaged and even more with the redistricting process. Redistricting is really redrawing the lines for our state legislative and congressional district boundaries. These boundaries will determine block by block who represents us, not only in Washington, Sacramento, and every office down the line. Redistricting is claiming our power, It occurs, again, at all levels. And it's basically drawing the map. One of the things we were so excited about with the census was, getting that high percentage rate of completion. But even with that, unfortunately, the state of California lost the very first time in its history, lost a congressional seat, because of our numbers. So we lose a seat, so we'll go from 53 to 52 seats. And unfortunately, states like Texas and Florida gain a seat. I won't go into that, why that's important, but I think you probably could realize why those are not necessarily states we want to gain additional voting power. So again, redistricting occurs every 10 years, just like the census, again, based on population and geographical boundaries. So just like the old school maps we used to have trying to drive from California to family down south, each of our areas will have a map, and each of the boundaries will be created, helping to define what our political world will now look like. This is probably one of the most important political efforts that will occur. Again, 10 years. 10 years is a long time when you think about this is going to determine how folks vote for us, who represents us, and also funding and other things that will impact our role. Why should we get involved? It's just critical. It's one of those things, like, there's so many answers to the why, and I almost want to say just because, but we did want to provide you with some points that you could share with your friends and family and begin to have these discussions about getting involved with the redistricting process. Again, it affects our political power. It's a direct bearing on who is representing us and what's best for our communities. And I say our communities, not only the ones that you physically live in, but the ones that you identify with as well. We want to make sure communities of color have a fair shot at electing candidates that will represent their views and concerns. And we want to make sure there's a diverse voice at the table with regards to representation. We unfortunately had experienced 4 years of not having that diverse voice. And I'm sure you are like me, we don't want to go back to that. Again, this just gives you a few more pointers with regards to why it's so important to the political power. It is about the money. It is about the elections. It is about making sure fairness occurs across board. If the maps are not drawn in a way that's equitable and fair and representative, then we will have what's called gerrymandering, and I am sure Commissioner Turner will be going into that. How to get involved. We want you to continue to educate yourself about the redistricting process. We want you to get to know your legislators and find out who are representing us now in drawing those maps. Commissioner Turner is representing the state. We actually have county representatives that we will share with you later. But now is the time to get involved. It's not time to wait. Maps are being drawn. Meetings are happening. So we want you to get involved with those. We want you to attend public meetings such as this. This will not be the last meeting that the Vallejo Alumni Chapter presents, nor other organizations like BWAPA that will be presenting on redistricting. So we encourage you, anytime you hear about it, log on or attend a meeting, a public hearing. And then you can submit your own suggested map. There are websites that I believe our moderator will be sharing at the end of the presentation and how to do that. There are a ton of websites, and I think Commissioner Turner will also speak to that. So at this point, this concludes my slides, Kay Patrice, and I will stop sharing. You're muted.
You're getting me fired up again. Fired up, so fired up. I'm not putting on my mute. I'm taking off my mute. I am worked up. Let me take a moment to introduce Dr. Gigi Patrick. She is going to help with the chat box. So we have a question. Hello. Good to see you. Good to see you. So we're going to ask a question or two to the chat box, and we want to know if you have any questions. So if you have a question about what you just saw, and for Rhonda, you put that in the chat box, and our beautiful Dr. Patrick is going to read out some questions. But in the meantime, I want to ask, I have a question for the audience while you all are thinking about it. What was your census why is my question. Gigi, let's start with you. What was your census why? What made you get all excited and fired up about the census?
Well, as I was really starting to pay attention to everything that was happening around us, I've always known that the census is important, but even more so now in terms of how resources are allocated to certain communities, understanding how by design there are systems that are established to undermine and work against people that look like me. And so, having a really strong sense of community and wanting to do what I believe is best for my community, I just felt it was very important that not only I complete the census, but make sure that, you know, everyone, that all my families and friends, that they were encouraged. And I even helped people go through the process. So that was the why for me, just understanding the significance in how you don't have this opportunity, but every, what is it, 10 years?
10 years, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was just really important to me.
Right, right. And I see a question.
Yes, so the first question is, of course, you asked what was your census and why? And then it looks like one of our attendees is asking, how is the redistricting map redrawn and who does that?
So don't take this as a cop-out, but I'm going to let the next speaker, who's a commissioner at the state level, answer that, because I know it's in her presentation.
I know, isn't that the beauty of everybody seeing everybody's presentation in advance? I love it.
It's like, yeah.
And, you know, so what I love about you being the start of our presentations, Rhonda, is you're for me, you're connecting the dots for us. You know, we did all that hard work last year, and then we didn't hear anything, you know, and you just helped us kind of lift that bar, and now we know why we did all that work. It's for one of those moments is for this moment right now, the redistricting conversation.
And I see another question has popped up. It's from Dr. Pasquale, Lake Pasquale. She said, I wanted to make sure my community received the appropriate allocation of resources. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was a huge why for many of us. We wanted to make sure, because we feel the impact. You know, you as an educator, Dr. Patrick, you feel the impact of not having the funds necessary. And to think this only happens every 10 years. You know, I kind of chronicled back and I was like, okay, well, that time I was in college, the next time I was having a child. I mean, so, you know, it's like 10 years, you kind of had those benchmarks of why maybe you weren't as in tune as you are now.
Right. And then about 10 years ago, I was a principal of a middle school with a significant high need population. And I remember it was during the time of the state takeover for the district. And so we were definitely affected by limited resources. And so the having this opportunity to engage and to engage others was just critical. And I'm really happy that we hit that mark, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that means for this community.
Yeah, so exciting. Okay, we have, anything else you want to add?
I think my final thoughts is there's still work to be done. Yeah. And there's still enough work for all of us to become involved and to remain engaged. You know, I kind of think of census and redistricting. You have, if you're not the person that is a talker, but you're a thinker, or a strategist. So you need those outgoing folks that can engage and capture a community. I think those are the folks that work really well in the census, because you're talking about things and you're getting people fired up. But then we need those thinkers and those strategists and those folks that are kind of work better behind the scene. You need to be working on redistricting at the same time. So I just hope we're all here in 10 years the next time around, because I think we'll have a different strategy of our approach with regards to, kind of driving the train the same time, so that we're able to, just kind of examine what's going on. So it's a learning process for us all. I'm happy to be on this learning journey with all of you, but please, please, please stay engaged, because it's a life or death situation. And thank you for providing me the opportunity to present today.
Thank you so much. You wrapped that up so beautifully. We did learn with the census that we get to work in whatever capacity we want. We could have made calls. We could have gone, you know, out and engaged neighbor by neighbor or in events. We really could interact anyway. And Gigi, what you said was right on as well. A lot of people got involved with the census because they saw it as a generational need. You know, this is for me because I will be 65 in 10 years. Where will those resources be? I will have grandchildren by then. You know, I have a 20-year-old at home, and in 30 years, I will probably have a grandchild. How will those dollars affect? 10 years is a long time to imagine, you know, what type of impacts there will be in the community. And I will tell you that the thing that got me fired up was also the dollars, the resources, and knowing that every single, it was the same as the voting. Every vote is one, everyone gets one vote. With the census, every person was, there's a certain amount of resources that came in for each person. Whether you were a baby, whether you're a senior, whether you're middle age, whether you're homeless, everyone, we needed those dollars. And 10 years ago, I think our number was 75% account. And then for this year, for us to be at 99.7%, how many more dollars came into the community that we needed in Solano County? Whew. Okay, Rhonda, you did it. I'm fired up. Yay.
Before we move on, you know, there have been a couple more comments, but I think it's really important about the issues that we face throughout the state of California, specifically with homelessness. And I know our committee chair, Valerie, shared that, you know, she does research and she's looking at how the census numbers helps her understand what's needed to end homelessness. And that is so critical. We really have to address the homeless challenges in the state. We have to fix that problem. So I really appreciate that comment, as well as there's some more questions coming. There's a question about the current map and what changes need to increase the need for resources in education, housing, and what are the specific gaps. So those are questions that the commissioner will respond to. So
yes, I'm going to click off.
So we can move on. Thank you, attendees, for your wonderful questions.
Thank you. And Gigi, you'll join, Dr. Patrick, you'll join me back a little later. Is that okay? Okay, and we'll get to the rest of those questions. Wonderful, wonderful. Now let me bring on Commissioner Trina Turner. Let me give you a few words about her. I'm so excited to tell you a little bit about her. Pastor Trina Turner is also the Executive Director of Faith in the Valley, a multicultural, multi-faith community organizing network. And of course, she is a commissioner for the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. Hello, Commissioner.
Well, good afternoon, ladies. I am so excited to be here with you today.
You've done an outfit change.
Yes, listen, I was not going to be the odd person out. I wanted my red on like those other amazing ladies. This is red alert.
This is red alert.
Yes.
We are so honored to have you. When we called, you immediately said, let me check my schedule. I'm in. And so we are so happy to have you. We remember the call to action, a year and 2 years ago, where they were doing a call of action for community leaders to step up, to become commissioners. And I remember there being a public, you could see publicly the list of people that were applying. And I think it really got people energized. This matters so much. So I am just honored to meet you and to have you here with us today.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Before I go into the presentation, I just want to say what an honor it is to be here. I absolutely appreciate each and every one of you. And I am so grateful. You are the Californians that we need everyone to replicate. Your level of engagement and excitement and determination to ensure that our voices matter and our voices are counted. I just want to say bravo, man. Every time you say that number, 99.7% completion count, that is phenomenal. So congratulations again. We think when we are engaged, we think that everyone knows, but they don't. So we've got to keep talking about it so that we can replicate what was done in your county all over the state. So with that, I'm going to get into our presentation. My sister Rhonda did such an amazing job. A lot of this may appear to be duplicative information, but I promise you it's information that you want to hear again and again until it sticks. Redistricting is something that's not necessarily accessible when you hear it the first time. It's almost like I've got to hear this again and say, what exactly is it they want me to do? Yeah, redistricting is something that it takes a little bit of getting used to. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to bring it up for you. One moment, please.
No problem. And I'll let you know when it's live. It's live.
All right, there we go. Okay, so with this and for today, we are going to be talking about, move me out of the way, our redistricting. But as a reminder, before we get into it, because we are now in the timeline of our public input, I have to let you know, according to our California Government Code 8253A3, our commission members, myself, staff, we can't communicate with or receive any information specifically about redistricting matters from anyone outside of a public hearing. And of course, as amazing as this gathering is today, it is not a public hearing. So I want you to know that I can't hear or take from you any public input during this educational presentation. However, because we are live and taking in a public setting, that information at any point, you can go to wedrawthelines.ca.org and begin to give information. So, did I mute myself?
No, the video's great. Audio.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we're going to go again now into what is redistricting. What is redistricting? We are trying so hard as a statewide commission to make redistricting exciting and sexy and interesting, but it is a challenging subject. Redistricting is defined as drawing new boundaries that determine which Californians are represented by each electoral district. So we redraw districts every 10 years, as was stated before. And it's important to note, and you can kind of think through your own neighborhood, that a lot changes in 10 years. In a 10-year time period, we have communities that change, priorities, interests, goals, the makeup of the community. Within 10 years, of course, we have those babies that are being born and we lose people, some people die. For California, people are moving in and out of the state within that time period. So communities will grow and communities shrink. And areas where there was roughly the same number of people all of a sudden become unequal. So these are some of the reasons why redistricting needs to take place and lines need to be redrawn every 10 years. As communities change, those districts need to be updated and they need to change. So one of the greatest powers that the people of California have is the ability to elect their own representatives. We want our representatives to conduct business of the government that will be beneficial for us. So how district boundaries are configured can make the difference between empowering and maximizing voters' voices or muting those same voices. So in most other states, we know politicians still redraw districts and they often end up drawing safe districts. for themselves to allow themselves to stay in office. So let's talk about a little bit specifically more about how redistricting affects you. First of all, I love this colorful slide where it's power to the people. The voters' first act was historic in California, and it transferred the power of drawing district maps away from politicians, and it gave power to the people. Having the opportunity to elect representatives that champion your interests and your issues, it's important in a state like California, because of course in California, our interests can vary from neighborhood to neighborhood, let alone from different counties within our state. So for example, Northern California might be really interested in championing environmental issues that could be of huge importance for them. And then Central California, where I'm at, Central California, there may be interests of agriculture. We have interest, farmland, that type of thing, water issues. And then if you're in Southern California, of course, there's all that traffic there. So transportation, housing and employment. So it varies. And then we have funding priorities is impacted by redistricting. So tied to the issue of electing representatives that champion your issues, you'll want to elect representatives that have your financial interest at heart. I heard the finance come out earlier when you were talking about interest rates when you were instead of talking about that count. But yes, you want someone that's going to for sure have your financial interest at heart. So when the time comes to build a budget for your area, you're going to want representation that's fighting to ensure your community gets the financial resources it deserves for various services such as education, water, and even your fire protection. Then you have your community boundaries. So the redistricting process is all about drawing lines and determining which communities get grouped into which district. So your input in this process is essential to help commissioners understand where your community starts and where your community ends. Redistricting in California is one of only a few civic activities that any Californian can provide input to regarding their community that ultimately impacts the law and regulation, tax structures, and how funding is distributed, as well as which services are provided. So on our slide 7 is the road to fair representation. The US Constitution requires that every American receives as close to possible equal representation in government. So as populations of districts change over time, it can leave some people overrepresented and others underrepresented in government. And so redistricting kind of evens out or does even out the population between districts. After the federal government every 10 years publishes the updated census information, California then, of course, must draw the boundaries of its congressional, of the state Senate, of the state assembly, and also for the State Board of Equalization. And we do that so that the districts correctly reflect the latest count of the state's population. So redistricting, it's based on the idea that each one of our voices should be represented fairly by creating districts that have the same number of people. Census results are used to draw new maps every 10 years to account for the ways that populations have changed and moved across the states and across the districts. At the federal level, we know we just had reapportionment. It takes place to reallocate the US House seats among the states. And this happens after census, as it just did and was mentioned earlier on the call. California now has 52 seats. We were at 53 seats for a long time. And California did grow, but we grew at a slower pace, slower than Texas and Florida. So, and that still may change because there are still calculations, there's still additional census data that will be received. And so that's not yet, it's important to know a final number. That number can still change again. Now, historically, legislators have drawn maps that allow them to choose their constituents rather than enabling the constituents to choose their representatives. So this former system undermined the concept of fair representation, which is to give the people the power to choose their representatives. So on this next slide 8, we've talked about redistricting and how it affects you. I want to talk a little bit about why independent redistricting matter because there is a difference. Democracy depends on voters, and it depends on voters having the opportunity to choose their representatives. So when elected officials redraw the lines of their own districts, when they get to design their own territory and they get to design and choose who their voters are, then that certainly does not look like fair representation. So this slide here, I love this particular slide because it highlights key terms in redistricting to help you understand why it's important to delegate the power of redistricting to the people. And as was mentioned, yep, I'm going to talk about gerrymandering. Gerrymandering, you'll hear that term anytime you hear redistricting, not far behind it. So what is gerrymandering? Well, gerrymandering is how differently drawn district maps can produce different results. Gerrymandering. It happens when the election district boundaries are drawn in a way that gives a particular set of people, a political party or a racial group, it gives them an unfair political advantage over another. So this graph, it shows how a jurisdiction with 50 people, that's 60% orange people, 40% purple people. It shows you 50 people. It shows how 5 different districts can be drawn in multiple ways, but it's not always fair. So if you look at the first 2 examples, it shows 2 ways to draw district lines in a fair manner. This is where the districts are drawn to reflect the population proportionally. And then the 2 examples on your far right, it shows ways to draw district maps in a manner that does not reflect the population fairly, which is referred to as gerrymandering. You see that? And so this is why independent commissions like California's commission was created, to remove the politics from the process and just to be able to focus on the people. Now, there is some criteria that has to happen when we're redrawing lines. And so that's what our slide number 9 shows. So as a commission, this is the criteria that we have to follow, and it has to be followed in this order when drawing district maps. So number 1, districts must be of nearly equal population, and that's in order to comply with the United States Constitution. Number 2, secondly, districts must comply with the Voting Rights Act to ensure that minorities have a fair opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. And then number 3, the number 3 requirement is one of contiguity. It says districts must be drawn contiguously so that all parts of the district are connected to each other. 4th, districts must minimize the division of cities and counties, neighborhoods, and communities of interest. We're going to keep talking about communities of interest in a minute, but districts must minimize the division of those to the extent possible. Number 5, districts should be geographically compact such that nearby areas of population are not bypassed for more distant populations. This requirement refers to density, not shape. And you've seen that in some of the maps before, where there's a certain area and then there's just a little strip of unincorporated land that connects another preferred area of land. So that's one of our criteria that we should avoid. And then number 6, where practicable, each Senate district should be comprised of 2 and adjacent assembly districts. And your Board of Equalization districts should be comprised of 10 complete and adjacent state Senate districts. So in addition to all of these criteria that's given, the place of residence of any incumbent or political candidate may not be considered in the creation of a map, and districts may not be drawn for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, a political party, or a political candidate. So now there are different redistricting efforts going on at the same time. We are only one of many that's occurring in California at the statewide level. So with the commissions, we're redrawing districts for state offices, while counties, cities, school districts, water districts, community college districts, they're also redrawing districts at the same time. And so we lift this up in each one of our presentations because different efforts are happening simultaneously. It could be confusing. But aside from being involved in your local efforts, we want you to be involved in the statewide. Aside being involved in your statewide efforts, we want to make sure that you're also involved in the local redistricting efforts. A little bit of history. So prior to 2010, legislators drew the lines, or the court did, if the legislators failed to carry out this duty. And then in 2008, California voters passed Proposition 11. That was the Voters First Act. I heard it mentioned on this call, which authorized the creation of an independent commission to draw new district lines for the state Senate, the state Assembly, and Board of Equalization. And then it was 2 years later in 2010 when Proposition 20 passed, and that was the Voters First Act for Congress, and it added in the responsibility of drawing congressional districts to the commission. So our goal as a commission is to spread the word that the people's role did, the phenomenal job that you did with census did not end with being counted. And also it's necessary for that same standing on the corner, blowing horns if need be, that same valuable community input is needed to assist the commission in the process of drawing the new districts. So the 2010 Redistricting Commission was California's first independent commission. The 2020 Redistricting Commission, we're building upon their work, and we hope to leave behind detailed information to assist the 2030 Commission when they perform their duties. And as you see on the slide here, there are a couple of other states with independent commissions. There's Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Michigan, Montana, and Washington that all use independent commissions to draw lines, and everyone else, not yet. So the commissioner selection. Oh, yes, Ms. K. Patrice, that commissioner selection. The commissioners, we all went through a rigorous application process that attracted over 20,000, I think it was like 26,000 applicants back in 2019. And so after an initial review of the applicants, over 2,000 individuals completed then a supplemental application. And after a very thorough, very public review, then we were left with 120 applicants, 40 Democrats, 40 Republicans, and 40 others. And after that, those were invited to present, or were presented, I guess I should say, presented to the legislature for them to choose. They got preemptive strikes where they were able to remove no more than 24 candidates, 8 from each pool, which left a total of 36 individuals. So we went from 20,000+ people down to 36. And at that time in, I believe July 2020, the first 8 members of the commission were selected through a public drawing in July 20th. And I'll tell you, I have the distinct honor in being able to wear and name the fact that I was your first ball drop through that process. So that was pretty cool. I was watching that. One of the first things I actually watched, I couldn't believe it kept narrowing down. And I'm like, Lord, I'm still in this process. Okay, here we go. And when it got down to the ball drop, I was actually on my way to Monterey with my sister. And I was like, okay, this thing just got real. If I'm really supposed to be a commissioner, I'm gonna need to be that first drop because I need to know what I got myself into. And the first ball drop happened and they said, number 8, Trina Turner. I was like, well, sir, here we go. Here we go. All right. So with that, once the 8 was selected by random drawing, the last members were then carefully selected. We took into consideration an account to include political party, to balance that out, geography, race, gender, and expertise. So with that said, I present to you your 2020 commissioners. Meet the commission. We are a 14-member commission made up of 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 4 members not affiliated with either of the 2 parties. So you see the names, faces, places that they're from below. The commissioners we are as diverse in geography as we are in opinions and expertise. There are 7 of us from Northern California, 7 Southern California, 8 women, 6 men. We range in age from the 30s to the 60s. There are NGO leaders, engineers, pastors, law enforcement officers, political scientists. We have a lawyer, and of course, a lot of us are public servants. And we invite you to join us at one of our commission meetings. They're currently still all held online due to COVID, and there's always instructions and a link for attending any one of our online meetings. So what do? What do these commissioners do? So the commissioner duties. For the commissioners, after we do these education sessions, we've done these for quite a while now, and we're actually winding down. This same presentation is available online. We've done a recording where each of the commissioners picked up about 2 slides, so you can kind of get a flavor from each of the commissioners based on a presentation that's available for you. But we've now moved into our public input time period, where we will hear from and accept community input and public testimony that'll assist us in drawing lines. The commission will draw maps for 4 different government bodies. For Congress, there'll be 52 currently, State Senate 40, State Assembly 80, and Board of Equalization an additional 4. And so on the diagram that you have, we've used an example of what the maps could look like, for example, for Sacramento. And this is just a demonstration for illustrative purposes only. So for our outreach zone, so from February to May, we've done this exact presentation all over the state. And what the commissioners felt that we would do as a plan of attack to ensure that we're reaching as many Californians as we could is that we divided the state into 11 outreach zones, zones A through K. And it's important to note these zones have no other value or importance other than it was our way to kind of divide and conquer from a notification standpoint, presentation standpoint, that we made a balanced effort to reach all of California. So with that division, we were eager to talk with all of the communities, et cetera. And again, we've come to a close now. You all are getting in. It's probably about another handful of presentations that will happen, but this same information is available online. So let's talk about our communities of interest. When drawing maps, we have to be mindful of communities of interest. Remember, it was one of the criteria that we talked about. And check this out. We can get the city and county information, all of the geographical makeup. We can get, who's there, some of the demographics, all of that stuff. Where are the parks? Where are the waterways? We can get that information. But as far as what's going on with you, what's important for you, that has to come from you. The commission is counting on information on communities of interest to come from Californians. So what is it? Communities of interest, they're defined as a concentrated population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within the same single district for purposes of effective and fair representation. Some examples include areas where people may have similar cultures, use the same transportation, maybe even have access to the same media outlets. Keep in mind that a community of interest is not the same thing as a district. A community of interest are your building blocks that make up a district. So if we get from each of the Californians what's important for them that surrounds them, then we can put together those community of interest submissions in a way to build out a district map that keeps people in like areas of their choice, of their choosing where possible. So keep in mind, there are different ways to describe your community. You can talk about them from a geographic perspective. You can talk about them as far as boundaries, et cetera, things that you have in common. So when you're defining your community, you can use oral testimony, call into the commission. In 2010, there were people that waited to give public testimony till like 12 a.m., 1 a.m. in the morning. And we are trying really hard to make us be very accessible and to be mindful of your important and your time, which is very important. So we've put in an appointment system. You can contact the commission and say, I want to give public input at whichever the meeting is of your choice. And they will give you an appointment time period. It's not like you got a 10:15 appointment and you call in at 10:15. It might be a block of time of about 2 hours, but listen, that's better than dialing in at 10 a.m. and your turn coming up at 1 a.m., right? So we put in an appointment system, et cetera. But when you're calling in, call in and talk about your personal story. Personal stories are powerful. think in terms of if you had someone visiting you from out of town and you wanted to describe your neighborhood, describe what was important to you. That's how you want to think about talking about your community of interest. So you have oral, what do you share in common? Street festivals or parades? Are there any importance, is there any importance of history for your neighborhood? And this can be done at meetings, et cetera. Otherwise, you can also do written testimony. You're like, nobody going to call and wait online all day, Trina. That's okay. I do want to hear from some of you, your voices. But beyond that, send in a written description to talk about your community. We will get every one of your testimonies. Every one of the public inputs that is received is tagged, cataloged, and kept. We have a system that we're using that 2010, I think they received 26,000 pieces of public input. And we're expecting to get that or double or more because now this is our second time as an independent commission. And we've put in a process whereby we will catalog and tag all of what you say is important for you. And so that way later, I don't care, months later, if you said something about, Griseda Park, then we would be able to type that in and it'll come up everything that was mentioned about a park, everything that was mentioned about Solano. It doesn't matter whatever the area is. So written testimony, send it in. Community issues. Maybe you can talk in terms of communities get involved as a community sometime in redistricting because they feel that their issues have not been adequately addressed by their elected representatives. So highlighting community issues in personal stories and written narratives will help demonstrate the importance of having elected officials who understand and respond to your community's need. So have your community ever come together to advocate for better services for schools or roads? And you can tell if you're in a right area when you all show up and the elected person says, well, I have to make sure I balance from all of my constituents. That's a clue for you that you may not be in a district that is beneficial to your group. So when you're submitting your community's interest, talk about not only who do you want to be included with, who do you want to be excluded from? Don't put us in that area because we already know they have huge political power and may not get our voices heard. We think we want to be kept together and we want to be connected with maybe this area. Tell us about it, right? You can also submit boundary maps, create a map of your neighborhood, mark the street names, significant locations. You can include significant landmarks or gathering places. And there, for sure, we want you to use an electronic tool that we have, which is called a community of interest tool. So when you participate in the process, if you see there on the slide, the drawmycacommunity.org, this was not available 10 years ago, but it is available now. And if you go in, you can describe your community. You can actually draw. It's kind of a plug and play. You can use that little lasso or use rectangles to highlight the area that you want to be named as your community of interest. Put some testimony in there, type it in. This is why it's important. Give yourselves a name. You'll see that all when you go into the drawmyca.community. And when you hit send, the commission will get your community of interest directly. You can get a copy of it if you log in. You'll be able to get a copy of it and just keep a record of what you've submitted so that you know that your submission went through. So community of interest mapping tool, drawmycacommunity.org. And it's also will be available in paper form with prepaid postage. So for those that don't want to go online, there will be paper forms available. They'll be at all of the libraries. You can download and print some off of our website. Again, our website is wedrawthelineca.org. And then you're going to click on Draw My CA Community Tool is a good way for you to get there. You can email votersfirstact@crc.ca.gov. You can call, and of course, US Postal Mail still works. The point is, however you've got to get it in, make sure we hear from you. And for friends, family, coworkers, please note that the COI tool, the Community of Interest tool, is available in all of the languages that you see below. And there's also tutorials available in that language. Matter of fact, a lot of our documents are available in multiple languages because it's very important for us as a commission to hear from all Californians. We've taken time to ensure that there was a translation of materials in our fact sheets, in our basics presentation, flyers in all of the languages that you see on the screen. Also, we may provide, we'll try to provide interpretation services for public comment of the CRC business meetings as long as we have 5 days advance notice. So that's, again, just good information to share. If you need an interpreter, just make sure that you notify the commission 5 days in advance, and we will provide interpretation for you. So as we get close to a close in this meeting here, I have to begin and end by reminding you, according to Legislator of California versus Alex Padilla, that, that not my reminder yet, this is a different one. This one is to just let you know that there has been some change in the timeline for the redistricting process. We know because of COVID, there was a lot of delay, a lot of change. And if census results are received after July 31st, we now know that it will be. Our timeline and the commission's deadline for our final maps all will be adjusted accordingly. So looking at the timeline here, this timeline is fluid. It's fluid. If you all didn't do anything else, please do check the website and keep going back there to confirm the timeline. But as it is right now on this presentation, back in February, we started these education presentations of the California Redistricting Basics. They were to end in May. We've extended them through June, and I think there may be 1 or 2 that will happen in July because they were already on the schedule. And then from there, we see the reapportionment data, of course, came in April. We had our first statewide public input meeting this past Thursday. Deltas, it's important to know that when you see on the timeline public input meetings, you can give your input at any meeting. I don't care what it's named. By design, we tried to set up the meetings in a way that if you're in Central California, we're going to have timelines for Area F, which is Central California, to try to drive as many Central Californians into that date. You'll see dates for Southern California, dates for the Bay Area, dates for, Mountain, all of those things. If those dates line up for you and you can call in or send your community of interest, then do that. If you look at those dates and none of them work for you, you can call in any meeting and give your community interest. Even if they're talking about LA and you live in Richmond, it doesn't matter. You can still call. We will take your public input. Next thing I want to say about that, please hear me. Your written submission through the tool is no more or less important than your voice. You don't have to do both. You can use the tool and submit your information. Get your receipt. If you don't log in, if you don't give your email, you'll send it, we'll get it. You won't be able to re-access it. But if you log in with your email, you'll always be able to go back and look at your community of interest. That works. If you don't do that for whatever reason, just call in, get an appointment, or just call in and make your public input. That works. If you want to do both, you can. It doesn't make it count more or less. Okay, so you have options. So back on our timeline, we're going to be taking public input from June through August initially. And then August time period is when sometime between August 15th, August 30th, we are expecting to get the census data that we need to be able to draw the lines. And actually the census data is expected to the commission by September 30th, because that information will come out by the end of August, but then they'll do some rearranging based on the prisons and those kinds of things. And so by the time we get the numbers, it will be September through October. And so starting in October, now we have your COI information, we'll have information that we need from the census. And so then we'll start doing line drawing sessions. We'll continue with our public input meetings, but we'll also start doing pre-district maps. We're hoping right now, sometime between November and December, to release our first district maps, the drafts. And the point of that is for you all to look at what we've done. See if we heard what you told us. Find your COI, find your areas of interest and see what districts you've been included in. And then you'll be able to call in, write in, send notification to the commission that says, bravo, yes, this is exactly what we want. Or if you look at it and you're like, oh my Lord, this is not at all what we wanted. We want to hear that too, because they're still draft maps and we want to be able to make adjustments where we can. Before I forget and get too far, because it came to my mind twice, when submitting your community of interest, it's important to tell us where you want to be, where you don't want to be. And even if you love the district you're currently in, please do submit a community of interest, submit public input, and tell us that. If you don't say anything, what will happen is those that did submit something will take precedence over what you've said because you didn't say anything. So that means everyone, just like Ms. K. Patrice and others have been saying, it's important that everyone submits something about what's important for you. If you give me just another minute, I want to really tell you how important this is. The commission had an opportunity, and it was public, so I'm not telling anything out of turn, but we had a public meeting where we were being trained in what does that look like for drawing the lines? How does it actually work? We have all the details. How does it work? Someone asked here, how does that work? And so what we were doing is we were given a number, a fictitious number that said, okay, commissioners, this is the number that you need to balance in each district. And then we were given fictitious COI, like people had written in about 10, 12 different things. People said, oh, keep me along the waterways. We all want to be in the same. Keep us here. This is what we want. We don't want this. So we took all that fictitious information. We took our numbers, and this was our practice. This was our training and how we're going to draw the lines. And as we began to try to balance that out, of course, if you put people here, this census block, this county, oop, that's too many. Let's take some out. Let's do this. As we did that, when we walked away, I noticed something about it because we did balance them out. But the way we balanced it out was by taking numbers from areas that we had no public testimony about. Do you hear what I'm saying? So areas, this was just training, but I walked away saying, oh my, there will be those that say, oh, I like my district. I think I don't have to participate in that process. Please participate anyway, and just tell us to keep my district the same, so that we won't feel like it's an area, kind of a play area that we have to make adjustments in trying to balance the numbers. And the seats are going to adjust this year. We've said that, which I don't want you to think in terms of current districts. Will they shrink a little or will they get larger? Think of a blank map. This is wide open for you to help us decide how we're going to draw these districts. Okay, too much about that. Oh, you got me. So November through December, draft maps will be released. You'll tell us about them. And then sometime December through January, very fluid based on what everything else is going to go on. Sometimes after that point, we're going to now take more information, and then we're going to release district maps, the final ones. Final district maps will go to the state of secretary. And of course, that will happen maybe December 15th, maybe December 30th, maybe into January. It may or may not impact primaries, is what we're trying not to do, but all of that is still very fluid. So here's my reminder. Again, no exact public input, can't take any of that, can't hear any of that in today's session based on our government code 8253A3. But you can go to wedrawthelineca.org today and give that information. So here's a way that for you to contact us for the commission, marcy.kaplan@crc.ca.gov is the person that you might want to contact on the commission. More information you have there. Follow us on social media. We are on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. There are lots of videos there. And we'd love for you to keep in contact with the commission. And based on what we've heard earlier, I am sure you will. So with that, Ms. K. Patrice, I'll turn it back over to you, and we can field perhaps a few questions.
That was such a good presentation. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
You know what? You took us from being excited about the census to transferring that excitement to our next steps. And boy, I heard a lot of wonderful things that we tied in from Rhonda's presentation surrounding that funding plan, and championing our issues. We're talking about the homeless community and these and our youth, our children education. So you really tied us all together, and you gave me enough time for a dress change.
I see you. Yes. And the pearls. Yes. Beautiful.
The pearls. I was like, okay, we're going full out red alert.
I love it. I love it.
Yay. So let's bring on Dr. Patrick. She is going to help us. Hello.
Hi.
Wasn't that a wonderful presentation?
Oh my goodness. Just a wealth of information. So thank you. I want to, before we moved on to look at the comments, it's my understanding that some of the attendees had raised hands. Could you give some direction on how we're addressing the raised hands?
You know, I saw the red hands. I didn't know, raised hands. I didn't know if they were raised hands when we were saying, tell us yes if you participated in the census. And I thought that's when those hands went up, giving us a yes. But I think we rather, you know, it's up to us. Who's going to stop us? We could do either. We could have, we could either do all chat, written chat, or we can address the hand raisers. We could do what we want. How about that?
Okay, how much time do we have? So if you see the hands, you can call them out then.
Yes.
I didn't see them.
Okay. Commissioner Turner, how much time do we have with you? I know you have a graduation.
Yes, I do. It's okay. What we got here? I'm good. Well, actually, I'm good till about 3:45, so I don't think we'll be that long. But yes, I'm good.
Let's do it.
I do see a question about the information. Will it be available for access?
Yes, that information is available now on the We Draw the Lines ca.org. It's on that under the education material, outreach material.
All right, and I see another comment that is asking you, Commissioner Turner, if you could speak a little bit about how incarcerated individuals are counting for as to drawing the lines.
Yeah, it was determined within California, in the institutions, in the systems within California, they will now be counted in their home, where they're from, which is different. Typically, areas where there are prisons, they get the benefit of the inmates right there. And now they're going to be counted based on where they reside at home. Now, that does not apply to federal prisons. Federal prisons, we don't have access to that information. So that did not change. But for California, they'll be counted in their home places.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
I think Reverend Dyson says, yes, very informative. So Reverend Dyson, if you can put down your hand, because I think we've got you. I think you're saying you're okay. We've got your question.
We also have a comment that said there's so much information that was provided, you don't even have to, that so much information that you don't usually think about. So extremely informative. So great feedback.
Can I add that the website that you gave us, wedrawthelines.ca.gov, that is such a wonderfully done website. It's so easy to access information. You can access this, the presentation, the PowerPoint that Commissioner gave, and also all of the wonderful information. It's so easy to follow. So thank you for that.
Good. Very good. I'll let Freddie know as well, because Freddie Seha is our comms person, and he does a beautiful job.
Yes, and fast. He also, the website also is updated really fast. Me and you were talking about something, and you said, "Oh, it's going to change any day." I'm like, "It's changed."
Good.
Do we have any other questions that we'd like to drop in the chat for Commissioner Turner while she's still with us?
Dr. Patrick, Sora Mitchell had her hand raised, but I don't know if she actually had a question.
Sora Mitchell, if you can't ask, can you drop it in the chat and we'll read it for Commissioner Turner? Oh, she just said she needed to lower it. All right. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Patrice, did you have anything else you wanted to share before we moved on?
Well, you know, I was writing down questions the whole time. I know you can't see it.
I was doing the same. I wasn't writing questions, but I was just kind of aha and things I want to go back and revisit.
Right. So here are my questions.
Yes.
So can we do written submissions in groups? Say 30 of us get together and we're looking at the maps and we're asking questions. Can we do a group submission, or do we need to submit everything separately? What has more power?
Yeah, they are both powerful and they will both be considered. And yes, you can do both. And so what I hear you saying, thank you for that question. What I hear you saying is, if we have a group of 30 people, can we all submit our communities of interest? And so a couple of things I'm thinking about that. Number one, that group could be in an area together, or they could be in a community of interest together. Remember, communities of interest are building blocks that lead up to a district. If that's the case, we're going to cover all of them. But if they're saying the similar thing, all 30 of those can be submitted saying the same thing. If they're saying we are all close and there's just slight differences, they still should all be submitted separately as building blocks. And then lastly, say, for example, you say, this is our community of interest, and I'm aware of another neighborhood that's close. So they're also of community of interest, and I'm aware of another. And by the time we map that out like puzzle pieces, this is our whole district that we want. You can submit that as a district map as well. So you don't have to be just limited to a community of interest. You can say, this is what we want as an entire district. This is what we want to submit. And you'll be able to do that also.
So my other question is, this chapter, the Vallejo Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, they are a powerful, well-connected group of women. And so my question is, the call to action for them, and they also, their superpower, one of their superpowers is social media. There's something else. So is their call to action to both, to the call to action, is it to both do two things? A, be on the state level, get involved. You know, here are these the links. This is how you can mail in your comments. This is how you can go online and do them. Is it two-pronged? Is it to do that and to get involved on the county level as well? So we should expect to be a part of two different redistricting community conversations?
Yes, and because you all are because you are so powerful, it may be all levels, definitely statewide level. And because of your connection, you very well may want to say, what does all of Vallejo look like? Who are the current, are we pleased with our current representation? Do they move in the manner that we think they should on behalf of our interests? And if they do, wonderful, submit that and say, this is exactly where we want to stay. This is where we want to be. If not, you might want to say, how should we be configured so that we have greater power? And you'd want to submit that. That's at a statewide level. From a county perspective, counties operate different. I don't represent counties, but I do know that each county has made, maybe by now have already determined if they're going to be an independent commission, if they're going to be, if they were appointed, if they themselves are going to draw their county maps. And from there, you want to ask that question. Based on what the answer is, you all may want to get in contact with your county board of supervisors and say, no, this is what we think should happen. Regardless of who's running the show, this is our thought process, and we want you to hear our voices. And in addition to that, even down to a city level and school levels within Vallejo, who's drawing those lines, who's taking care of it? At least know the answers and be able to weigh in with letters or what have you, saying this is what we want to have happen for this body.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. And what I just did is put into the chat box the redistricting website for Solano County. We are getting organized, involved. I believe their whole body has been appointed. And they also have a really great website as well. Wonderful. Do we have any other questions, Dr. Patrick?
Actually, we do. So the first question is, how do I find my current community line area or district?
Mm-hmm. So that, you know what, Google is amazing and wonderful. So if you just do go on, and you can find it on most of the government websites, it'll tell you what your district is when you put in your information, and it'll show you all the little lines and boxes, who's currently there, what their political party is, all of that.
All right, and then there's another question. Will there continue to be opportunities for comments once the commission begins their redistricting efforts prior to their submission to the legislator?
Yes, all the way through. All the way through. This is not based on any fact. I have never been a commissioner before now. I'm learning as I go. I do know human nature. And I want to encourage as many people as possible to submit your community of interest now. Get in early and not later. Have you ever, in your mind, I'm just asking all of you, have you ever created a plan? You mapped it all out. This is what I think needs to happen. This is how I'm going to do it. And then someone later comes in with new information. And even if it's good information, it's kind of like, I got to rethink everything. There's this kind of dread, like, oh my God, I had the plan already together and here comes more information. So with that thought process in mind, I think it's important that to the extent possible, submit your ideas, your community of interest information. So as we're drawing the lines the first time, as we're getting kind of settled in what we think is going to happen, your input is there up front. Now, yes, we are going to consider all of them all the way through to the end. And if you just can't get it in early, get it in when you can. You saw the timeline earlier, for sure through, I would say August and September, you can still submit information. But I tell you, you want to shape the thought. You don't want to come in later trying to change a thought.
Shape the thought. That's powerful. I'm just going to let that sit there and linger for a minute. That's powerful. Shape the thought. Yes, yes. Whew. Well, you've given us a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. The call to action is let's submit early, not late. So I think, and I have a feeling Rhonda Smith is in the background giving us our call to action of when we need to start. So I think we're gonna have something to put on our calendar soon, but this is very, very exciting. Do you have any closing thoughts, Commissioner?
I think as a closing thought, it's just one of gratitude. It's one of excitement. I think you all are the most prepared, engaged group that I've spoken with to date. And that's just exciting for me. It's like, yes, this is what you want to see happen over and over and over in every one of our areas. And quite frankly, you don't. It's usually more of a pull, and I'm not complaining about it. I did not know about the redistricting process. I did not hear about it. Someone mentioned it to me and basically said, you know what, there's not a lot of African-American, there's not a lot of female, there's not a lot of engagement and people aren't aware. And I hate when I hear stuff like that. And now I do know about it because it makes me feel like, well, shoot, okay, now I'm accountable to that. I need to do something. So I got to tell you, I applied and did not know what it was initially. I didn't have a full understanding, but I'm like, oh, well, God, okay, I'll apply for it. I'll submit the paperwork. And with every step as it kept moving forward, I thought, shoot, I better pay attention to what this is. I better get some. So I guess my thought is it doesn't matter if you didn't know about it before. It's never too late to engage. And I think the wraparound services that you all provide, the support, and just kind of, I feel like a cocooning and love and nurturing people to help understand the process. It's such a blessing to hear. It's such a great place to be in. And I think you'll help people, whether they are coming and being introduced for the first time, or if it's something that they've known all along. It is absolutely right. Never too late to engage. And so I just want people to take that and be encouraged by it, jump in, get in where you can, and make sure your voices are maximized and not muted.
You know, before I let you go, I have to tell you, because you couldn't hear me, but I have a feeling that when you were going through your presentation, and you showed that big group of 20,000 and how it was narrowed down. And then you showed the last of you, the final, our commissioners, just our whole body of commissioners. And with you there in that picture, I was back here. I was yelling. And clapping. I was so happy. And I have a feeling, and I wanted to say that because I have a feeling that we were all doing it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate your warm thoughts. I encourage your prayers and good thoughts, and just thank you for having me today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you
so much.
All right, ladies.
Oh, Dr. Patrick. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, amazing, you all.
Right?
I'm so happy. I don't even know what to do.
Well, I'm going to sign off, and you all enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Patrick, now we can tell her, we can say how amazing she is behind her back.
Right, exactly.
This has been really, really good. And we just get to add more syrup to the sundae because we have a local leader coming up. So I'm going to introduce her. But Dr. Patrick, will you come back at the end and help moderate these questions? You will?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, we're tied by the hip. Don't you go too far.
Okay, I'm right here.
Well, hello, Latricia. How are you?
I'm fine, Kay Patrice. It's great to be here. Thank you for everything. This has been a fantastic afternoon.
You know what? Well, first, let me tell people if they don't know who you are, and I doubt that. I have a few lines about you so people will know exactly who the powerhouse that is Latricia Wilson Alford, Juris Doctorates. You are a CEO, a senior consultant at L. Wilson Alford and Associates, and a seasoned veteran in government relations and community affairs. Can I add local powerhouse?
Thank you, Kay.
Well, I know already that you started to anchor us in the census early before the rest of us got on board. I think we were at a 60% interest if I don't stop saying interest rate, a 60% response rate before I kind of got fired up, and you were that engine before that, that really got us to that 60 and was doing a lot of organizations, grassroots organizations. You were making, you had a team that was making calls, that was going door to door early. And so, you've got to be ecstatic as to the closing, our closing number of 99.7%.
I am. And actually it was work that you did, work that WAPA did. We actually started reaching the undercount of the Black community in 2019. And so we hired a group of people who were going door to door, looking for the undercount. We found people living in Black people. This is the Black undercount. We found Black people living in offices. We found them living in buildings, under buildings, because of the way Vallejo is made. We found Black people in alleys. It was just amazing. And then when COVID hit, we began to make calls. And the information we found out was astonishing when we began calling, because our older population, a lot of them had passed on. Our younger population in their 20s, they knew about the census. They were answering the census or about to answer the census, but a lot of them had moved out of the state. The the difficult to reach group was the 40, I would say 35 to almost 50. A lot of, and especially Black women, they would not answer the census. They didn't want to respond. They didn't know what the census was. So it was very challenging to really count our people. And as a result, it's going to be interesting to see how the census numbers are here in Solano County, and also how the redistricting is drawn.
It is going to be interesting because, I mean, we did get a lot of people counted, and it was because of also the collaboration and the energy that came in from the Black sororities, fraternities, every Black club. Like, I've never seen us organized and engaged at that level. Mm-hmm. But my worry is people were counted, but how has things shifted?
Right.
Since the pandemic. That's going to be interesting. But oh my goodness, when I saw your presentation, ma'am, I was really excited. I cannot wait to see it. I'm going to just say, we can't wait to see it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pull it up.
And while you're pulling up, you know, what just came to my mind is together, our community can do anything.
That's right. That's right. So my question is it showing on your screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. We'll pull it out. Ah, here it is. Now it is.
There it is. You know, I feel like some of it is it a little cut off at the bottom, maybe?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now you see it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So, in honor of Delta Sigma Theta's Delta Days, this presentation I put together, and it's a presentation on redistricting in California from a Black perspective. I'm doing it from a Black perspective because of the fact that, you know, we often think of people of color, but when we talk about Black people, and I'll explain why in my presentation, we have to also look out for our community. So again, I want to thank the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Vallejo Alumnae chapter for inviting me to speak. And it was awesome to see Commissioner Turner. The only way, I want to preface this by saying the only way to draw fair and equitable lines is to take the politicians out of the process. And Commissioner Turner mentioned that. And the citizens have to draw the lines, and that is you. You all have to help draw the lines. So I want to start by saying that census, redistricting, and the Black community. And this is a thought process for regaining Black power in 2021. So I want to start by presenting to you the idea that some lives matter less is the root of all that is wrong with this world. And you're right, some of it is not showing. It was shown previously.
But it still looks good.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as it works. And so that is a quote by a gentleman by the name of Paul Farmer. And Paul Farmer is a public health administrator, and he's the founder of Partners in Public Health. And his belief is that he set out 20 years ago because his belief is that we have to provide medical care to impoverished nations and impoverished people. We can't leave anyone behind. And that's the premise that I'm going with in regards to redistricting. We cannot afford to let our people, Black people, be left behind in this process. So what am I saying? I'm a numbers person and a statistics person. And so this information comes from the US Census, an article entitled The 2010 Census Shows Black Population Has Highest Concentration in the South. So what I did was I pulled this out, and this is the percentage of Black or African American population growth in the West. And when we talk about the West, we're talking about California, Nevada, Arizona, the Western states. But most of us came here to California from the South. So what it's showing you is in 2010, Black or African Americans alone or in combination. There's some people, when we say combination, we're talking about folks from the islands or Africa, or even, Black people who might be of mixed race. So in 2010, it was 9.8. So it grew slightly from 2000, where it's 9.6. Also, Black or African American alone, that's without our other brothers and sisters from the diaspora, the population was 8.8 in 2010, and 2000 was 8.9. Now this is in California. This is the population of us compared to all the other Blacks or African Americans in the United States. And then when you look at the last one, it says Black or African American in combination. So this includes our brothers and sisters. And we were in 2000, we were 2.8%. And 2010, we were 23%. So this percentage represents that we in the West, including California, we were almost a quarter of the Black population in the United States. And then I'll move on a little bit more. So the California population in 2021, you see 39,466,855. This is the total California population. In 2020, the numbers were 39,648,938. So we declined as a state in population. It was a 0.46%. This information comes from the California State Department of Finance. Now let's talk about the Black population in California. In 2000, California had the second largest Black population at 2.2 million. Now you may ask, well, how is that when most of our people live down south? Well, if you look at the other states, they're small states. So we had 2.2 million. Other states may have had maybe 1 million Black people or less. In 2018, nearly 75,000 plus Black people left California. And why did we leave California? Well, there was mass incarceration. Some of us were, incarcerated in other states or federal prisons in other states. There was a reverse migration. There was a big migration that started in the 50s. Black people came here to find work, the promise of a better life. Well, we began to go back to the South. Gentrification was a big thing in California. You look at Oakland. Oakland used to be predominantly Black. Richmond was at one time 64, 67% Black. You look now, it's not. It's too, gentrification came in. We couldn't afford to live in those areas. California, a lot of Black people say, is too expensive. We have the gas tax. We have high sales tax. We have an income tax, that state income tax are high. So a lot of Black people, particularly we found in our research during the census that a lot of young Black people began to leave the state. They couldn't afford to live here. And as mentioned before, we began to move to more affordable red states such as Arizona, Nevada, and Texas. Now, let me tell you, we're losing population, However, it's not bad on a if you look at it politically, that Black people are moving to Arizona, Nevada, and Texas because we are turning those states purple. So for political reasons, for Democratic reasons, you know, I'm a Democrat, so I'm gonna say this. When we began to move and leave California, it's unfortunate for California because we did lose a congressional seat. We're losing a congressional seat down south in Southern California. It's a seat that, like toward the end of California. But though we have been turning those states, young Black people, young white people, Democrats, are turning those states into red states. So this information came from Cal Matters. It's analysis of the 2018 American Community Survey. And so all these totals are actually estimates. Okay, and if you don't know what the American Community Survey is, it's a survey that is conducted by the census. The census is every 10 years. The U.S. Department of Commerce census might do the American Community Survey every year or so. So now I'm going to break it down even further, and then I'll get out of my statistical head. According to United States Census American Community Survey Quick Facts, this is the population for Solano County as of April 1st, 2020. So white alone is 37.2%. Black or African American alone is 14.8%. American Indians and Native Alaska Natives alone is 1.3%. The Asian community in Solano County, this is all for all of Solano County alone, is 16.2%. Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders who do not consider themselves as Asian is 1%. Two or more races is 7%, 7.1%. And our Hispanic and Latino brothers and sisters is 27.3%. And actually, these numbers were a lot more diverse than other areas. And then when I compared the Bay Area, more Black people have moved to Solano County and left places like Alameda County. Alameda County had a lower Black or African American percentage population. They were at, I believe, 11%. So we actually have 14.8, which is a large percent per se. And we had a smaller white percentage in Solano County than other places. So I'm going to just talk briefly about the California Black Census and Redistricting Hub. And this is who BWAPA worked with in gathering the census. So the California Black Census and Redistricting Hub is a network of over 30 Black-led and Black-serving organizations across the state, and their focus is on maximizing participation in the census and redistricting process among hard-to-count Black communities. The Hub prepared its network of organizations to conduct targeted and tailored field outreach campaigns to educate, motivate, and activate the voices of thousands of Black Americans, Black Californians, throughout the census and redistricting process. So BWAPA we worked with this organization and other organizations in the Bay Area to reach those hard to count people so that the numbers would increase for the Black community. And in addition, a lot of the African churches, particularly churches in Solano County, because there are some African congregations here, they were telling their people to answer the census and to report themselves as Black. So the question is, how does this affect redistricting for the Black community? Black people must look at redistricting differently than other groups of people. First of all, what is a community of interest? And I'll go into that. There's been other presentations on community of interest, but I'm coming from an unapologetically Black perspective. The other question is, how can we draw redistricting lines or have input on how the Redistricting Commission draws lines to give our community power, to give our community democracy? And that's what I'm focusing on. How do we as a Black community raise our voices or give ourselves a voice when we know that our community is shrinking, number one, but we have to have democracy. We have to have what many call Black power. So what is a community of interest? A community of interest is a neighborhood, community, or group of people who have common policy concerns and would benefit from being maintained in a single district. Another way of understanding a community of interest is that it is simply a way for a community to tell its own story about what neighbors share in common and what makes it unique when compared to surrounding communities. Why is a community of interest important? Because keeping communities of interest together is an important principle in redistricting. It can be especially helpful to communities that have been traditionally left out of the political process. Community members can define their communities by telling their own stories and describe their concerns to policymakers. Why do I have these pictures on here? Because I want us to begin thinking out of the box when we think of what is a community of interest. When I think about drawing lines, when I think about defining a community of interest, I look back and I say, where are the Black businesses? Where are they located? Maybe we can develop a community of interest where our Black businesses are located because they serve our community. Our places of worship. We have places of worship in Vallejo and also in Fairfield that are Black. Can that be a map? Can we draw a map or describe in our own words that these two things make up our communities of interest? Yes, because I've seen a map from LA where an organization used churches as their communities of interest. They drew a map in LA focusing on the boundaries of where the churches are located. And they're arguing that this is our community of interest. This encompasses our community of interest because these churches supply resources for our community, and our community depends on them as our communities of interest. And they help work with us on making policy. And so, so when they say, what is community of interest? I want all of us to think out of the box. The other thing I want us to begin thinking and understanding is that in California, in Northern California, when you look at the legislature, the state legislature, there are no Black women from Northern California. The last Black woman to be elected to the state legislature was Barbara Lee, who I am her senior advisor, although I'm not speaking for her. But she was the very last Black female legislator to go to the State House. So what does that mean? That means that our voices as Black women are not being heard. That means that when it comes down to maternal health issues, there's no one sitting there representing Northern Cal in that regard. So the legislator can say, we'll just take money out of that program because there's no voice there. There's nobody there fighting for us. So when we think of community of interest, I want us to think out the box. For example, let me tell you, the only the only elected office not chosen by or not affected by redistricting is your U.S. state representative, because they're voted by people in the state. They're voted statewide, but your congressional people are. So when we think of community of interest, we need to think, we're located here. Okay, do we have an interest in what's going on in another town that makes wine or known for making alcohol? What do we have in common with them? If we don't, then maybe we need to look somewhere else. I don't know. So it's up to us. I'm not saying that we should, but that's something that you have to really think about. So that I can't really express how important looking at community of interest from a Black perspective is. Our Latino brothers and sisters can look at language. They can say our community of interest is the places and locations where people speak Spanish. Or our Asian brothers and sisters can say the places where people speak Mandarin. We speak the language of the United States, basically. I hate to say that because we're a multicosm of many languages, but we only speak English. And so, we have to really look at outside the box to determine our community of interest. Strategic approach. So I'm working with, my firm has been asked to work with some young people in Alameda County. And what we're going to do is they're high school kids. And so they're going to go out and their charge is to figure out what is a community of interest. Also, they're going to work to do a map, and they're going to make calls, and they're going to do emails. So a strategic approach is step one would be community outreach and coalition building, meaning that you as a sorority can go out and build coalitions with other like-minded organizations that are thinking the way you're thinking in regards to empowering the Black voice or Black democracy in redistricting. Developing coalitions and organizations, developing coalitions, with organizations that are doing the work and stakeholders in the community. You can attend community redistricting meetings by community organizations, which you are doing. Other people who are not within your organization, it would be great if they're on the line they're a step ahead because they're learning and they're building a coalition. Survey. I'm going to have the young people develop focus groups where they survey young people, they survey families, they're going to survey businesses and community organizations and have different focal groups to discuss what is their community of interest. Could be policy, health, healthcare policy. How are they going to determine that? Step two, the goal is to keep Black democracy intact by identifying what places, cultural norms, and commonalities make up a community of interest for the Black community. Like I said before, churches and houses of worship, Black-owned businesses, Black serving institutions, which can be a school. It could be a school with a majority Black population. You're serving the Black students and their families. And then meet with your commissioners who are representing your area. We're in Area C. So you also need to meet with those commissioners. It's great that we had a commissioner today, and she gave us an outline. She gave us tools on what how we need to do this. But you also need to meet with your commissioners from your area. Step 3, attend virtual California redistricting meetings. They're all virtual now. Listen, provide input, and voice your concerns. That was already stated by the previous presentee. Communicate, call, email, write to voice your concerns. And also invite your Area C commissioners to your community forums, which is what you did today, which is exciting. You invited a commissioner to come. Step 4, influence the redistricting process. Draw maps, partnering with map groups. When myself, Tiffany, Julia, and Mina got together, we drew the winning map for Vallejo because the city was involved in redistricting because of a lawsuit that went, attorney sued California because he felt there was not it was true. There was no Latino representation or Black representation on many of our city councils and our school boards. So we drew a map, and for us, the community of interest we felt was Highway 80. We wanted to have everyone to have access to Highway 80 because we felt that it would empower all of the different districts, because if Vallejo ever got businesses to come to Vallejo, these businesses would need direct access to the freeway. So we wanted to empower all the communities with Highway 80. The other thing we set out to do, we thought strategically, is that we didn't want the crest to be voiceless. When we looked at the map, we saw that there had to be so many people within a certain district. And unfortunately, the way it would have been drawn is that the crest would have been with Hittenbrook. We didn't want that to happen because we felt that Hittenbrook would be more vocal than the crest area. They would have more power because we felt politicians might listen to them more so than the crest. So we drew the line so that the crest was not in with Hittenbrook. And so we kind of drew them into with, certain areas, South Vallejo. And so this allowed for the people to choose who they wanted to elect. So the current election that just happened, the community was able to elect who they wanted to represent them. Same with the state redistricting. When I think of the fact that there are no Black women from Northern California to represent us in the State House, the last one was in the 90s under Barbara Lee, we are voiceless as Black women. So also under step 4, advocacy. I find organizations who are involved. The Black Census and Redistricting Hub is one. BWAPA is on the state level is involved in advocacy. Black Census Hub, and also there are other organizations that are working with a group, working with UC Berkeley. There is the Otherling and Belonging Institute. That's the name of it. They're going to help draw maps. They're going to help us draw a statewide map that is going to focus on Black power. So they're going to help us do a statewide map. They're also going to do the legal work to make sure that the map is in compliance. So, and that's something that we did on a local level. just to make sure that we had the numbers and it was in compliance. So that is something that you can do. But also in addition, you can, like the commissioner said, you can go online and draw your map. You can also speak your map. You can email your concerns, you know, so there's different ways to do it. We're just looking at drawing a map that's going to include the entire state of California. And we're partnering with Black organizations in LA, as well as in Central Valley. Important information. So the commissioner mentioned that they've already begun public comment. So I just want to let you all know that some important dates, June the 28th from 10 to 6 is going to be a hearing. Also, July 29th, the time to be announced. Communities of interest, public input meeting for Zone C. And Zone C is Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Solano. And it's great to hear the commissioner say that if we can't make those meetings, you can always make other zone meetings to express yourself. Our commissioners, Pedro Toledo, he is a commissioner who is neither Democrat or Republican. And I have his email there. Russell Yee. Russell Yee is out of Oakland. He's got to be one of the only Republicans in Oakland. But he is our commissioner. And here's his email. And you can always email either of them. Have them come and you know, speak to the group. Ways to comment. There are ways to comment. I put here, you could call into the meetings. You can email, or you could do snail mail. You can send a map to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. That's one way to do it. And also you can go on their website. So that is my presentation. I thank you all for allowing me to speak today. I've learned a lot. It's been great. And I hope that what was presented, at least my perspective, is that you began to think differently about redistricting, that you began to think preserving Black democracy, preserving Black voice as we begin to lose people in our Black people who are leaving out the state. We don't want to become a whisper. We don't want our voices to not be heard. We don't want to be, I want to say, we don't want to be just put in a category where we are not, our needs and our concerns in regards to public health, in regards to policy, in regards to electing who represents us. I don't want us to be left out. So I just want to thank you all. Thank you, Kay Patrice, for moderating this. And thank you to ladies of Delta Sigma Theta.
Thank you so much. You said we don't want to become a whisper. And I'm just going to let that sit. We don't want to become a whisper. Whew. That is good stuff. Latrice, thank you so much. You really helped us understand communities of interest. I'm so glad that you talked about your experience, you know, drawing districts, drawing lines. That was so helpful that you had that, you know, that experience doing that, and you was able to bring that today so we can imagine what this process looks like. Thank you so much. You brought an amazing amount of value to this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
So everyone, we've been put to task. We have been given our call to action. We've been told that we need to get involved. I know when I talked to Commissioner, she said, oh, 99.7%. Great. I need to see 99.7% work, interest, sign on, comments from the community surrounding redistricting. 99.7%, which means we have a lot of work to do, but we can do it together. We can do it together. So with that, I want to say thank you again to Latricia for bringing all this valuable, amazing. You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm going to bring to our virtual stage the chairwoman of the Social Action Committee, Miss Valerie Carpenter. There she is.
Thank you, Kay Patrice.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Everybody.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, huh?
Yes, very impactful, information that everybody needs, whether or not they think they need it. Everybody needs it. And I think, Latricia did a great job of stressing the Black community as a whole and how that really impacts us. So thank you for that. I do just want to say thank you to all of our presenters today. So thank you for starting us off, Sora Rhonda Smith, and then the great presentation by Commissioner Trina Turner, and then to just have everything as a culmination by you, Latricia Alford. So thank you again. I want to bring your attention to some things before we get out of here. Oh, before I do that, let me say thank you to our participants. So again, this would not have been possible without you. Thank you for being engaged, working the chat comments, really, making sure that you engage with our presenters and the people behind the technology running this today. So we appreciate you for that. As you can see in the chat, Kay Patrice has dropped a form in there for you. We want your feedback. We want to know what you thought about the event today, what you thought about our presenters, and different, information that we can take to make this event for future events better. So please take a few minutes to do that, whether you do that now or afterward. Kay Patrice, do you have the QR code for them?
Yes, it's loading now.
Okay. And there's also a QR code if you all would like to do that. All you need to do is get your phone out, grab, put it on camera, and then just go in front of the screen and let it scan, and it should bring up a link for you. And then you can fill out your evaluation that way. So that's a little quicker. Or otherwise, you can just go and click on the link that she provided in chat as well to do it. So I'll give you a few minutes for that. And we don't want you to forget to go on Facebook and like our page. So go to Vallejo Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated on Facebook, and you'll find our page. Make sure you like it. We're going to share out this recording onto the Facebook page. And please make sure that you share this information with people in Vallejo, people that is directly affected by the redistricting and the census.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been amazing. Chairwoman, should we close?
let's close. And thank you all for being so patient with our technology in the beginning. As you know, it does what it wants when it wants. And also thank you for staying over a few extra minutes with us as we got all this good information. So go take it out into our community.
Thank you.